Hello, podcast fam. I am thrilled to share some exciting news. My book, So Grow Lead, is officially live on Amazon. This book is more than just my story of starting a nonprofit and building a peanut butter factory in Malawi. So trust me, the ups and downs of that journey are worth the read. It's also packed with practical strategies to help nonprofit leaders like you tackle challenges with clarity, courage, and a whole lot of heart. If you've ever wondered how to turn your vision into reality, navigate the inevitable hurdles, and build something meaningful, whether in your organization or in your own life, this book is for you. I'd be so grateful for your support in spreading the word. Grab your copy of So Grow Lead in the show notes and on Amazon today. Let's keep sowing seeds of impact together. Welcome to the Lead with Heart podcast, which is dedicated to nonprofit leaders who are passionate about making a difference. I'm your host, Haley Cooper, and I'm thrilled to have you join us on a journey of growth, inspiration, and transformation. At Lead with Heart, we believe that leading with heart means embracing empathy, compassion, and authenticity in every aspect of our work. It's about putting people first, fostering genuine connections, and creating a positive impact that goes beyond numbers and metrics. In the nonprofit world, it can often feel like we're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. The challenges are immense and the road can be lonely. But here, you're not alone. This podcast is a community where we support each other, share our stories, and learn together. Each episode will dive into personal and professional development topics tailored specifically for nonprofit leaders. From innovative fundraising strategies and effective team management to self-care practices and leadership insights, we're here to provide you with practical strategies that you can apply to your life and work. My goal is to empower you, elevate your leadership, and engage your heart in all that you do. I want to help you navigate the unique challenges of the nonprofit sector with confidence and resilience, so you can continue to create meaningful change in the world. So whether you're driving to a meeting, taking a break, or winding down for the day, tune in and join us on this journey. Together we'll discover what it truly means to lead with heart. Thank you for being here. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Lead with Heart podcast. I am thrilled to welcome Christy Pretzinger, the CEO and founder of WG Content, a company that has reshaped the healthcare content landscape through an inspiring approach centered on kindness and people-focused values. Christy's journey isn't just about building a successful agency, it's about cultivating an environment where both individuals and leaders grow together. She's a sought-after speaker and expert on topics like emotional intelligence, trust, and the often overlooked soft skills that create truly connected and effective workplaces. All of my favorite topics to discuss. So let's dive into her insights on creative, inclusive, trust-filled cultures that prioritize human connection. Welcome to the podcast, Christy.
Thank you for having me, Haley. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Can you share what inspired you to build WG Content on a foundation of kindness? And what core values did you establish early on and how have they evolved?
Well, when I started building the business, I had been a freelance writer for about 10 years. And I had left the corporate workplace just because I felt like it just didn't really feed my soul. And I felt like I was a cog in the wheel. And really, I realized that more in hindsight than at the time. But I just knew I wasn't happy and I wanted to do something else. So when I said I wanted to build it based on kindness, it wasn't that the people that I worked for were unkind, but the structures within which they worked didn't foster kindness. And that's kind of a core part of who I am. And so that was an intention for me. I didn't, sometimes people act like I've invented electricity when I talk about this. And I'm like, this is really not that new of a concept. Kindness should be a core value. Unfortunately, I don't think it really is very often anymore, and certainly not in the workplace. So anyway, I just really wanted to do that very intentionally. And many years later, when I looked back and when we were having some consultants work with us, I don't know, about 3 or 4 years ago, the first thing they did was survey all of the employees to discover what was the core of our business. And they discovered that the core of our business is indeed our culture. And that was very interesting, given that a lot of people would think you can't really monetize culture, that it doesnn't contribute to the bottom line, but indeed it does. So our core values, actually, we developed these as a team. I don't know how many years ago, it's been quite a while now, but we are empowered, curious, kind, and fun. And then our mission is we build relationships one word at a time. And those really do come to life. We live them out. We're virtual, so we don't have them on a wall somewhere. But we actually have a all-hands team meeting once a month. And our HR coordinator, about a week prior to that, says, okay, this month we're going to recognize employees who demonstrated empowerment. Please send me your nominations. So people send in nominations about their coworkers, and they have to write about why that person demonstrated empowerment. And then at the end of the meeting, we close it out. We call it the Woohoo Cup. And we do a little presentation, and she pulls it out of the hat. And the person gets an award that is related to whatever the value is. So we really do talk about those in a very active way. And I frequently say that your values should remain constant. The expression of them might change, but the values themselves should remain constant because they should be a thread that flows throughout your organization and upon which all decisions can hang. And you want all of your employees to really be able to know easily what those values are. Ours roll off your tongue. Everybody can tell you what they are. And people really do try to live them out.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you really embody it internally within your organization. And I do talk a lot about culture on this podcast. And I just think it's so important to have that culture internally to then raise that revenue or be successful externally. So I always love to ask this question because everyone has a different answer. How do you define culture?
Yeah, that's an interesting conundrum because everybody calls it something different. I think a lot of times people think that it's ping pong tables and beer kegs and things like that, when it's not. It's more nuanced than that. And it's actually hard to really nail down the actual word around it. But for us, what I would say is it is the way in which we behave with one another, with the contractors that we work with, and the way that we facilitate relationships with our clients as well. All of those behaviors together form this magic tapestry that is our culture. And I frequently say to the team that this is a really great example of the whole being greater than the sum of its parts, because all of us collectively together have co-created this really special place that we all protect and cherish.
Yeah, and I think that idea of co-creation is so important. And like you said, your team co-created those values from the beginning. So if a listener is listening to this, maybe they're embarking on a strategic plan or they're trying to do that value evaluation and start to integrate that, where do they start with that co-creation? And what does that values exercise look like?
Another very important thing is the leader needs to have both intention and attention, because you need to have an intention to do something, and then you have to pay attention to that intention, or else it just goes into the ether, right? So if your intention is to build a culture based on whatever value you want it to be, some businesses, the culture is based on they've got VC-backed money. They need to see 100% growth quarter over quarter. And that's what their culture is about. And they're very intentional about that, and they pay attention to it. For some reason, people find it easier to pay attention to money things than they do to human things, which is weird. But in terms of what that exercise looks like, when we did this, we were a lot smaller. I don't even know how many years ago it was, because we have 34 people now, and I don't know how many people we had then. But we definitely worked on it as a group, kind of crowdsourced it, thinking about what are the values. We always knew kind was going to be one of them. And we wanted to make the words active. We're word people. We used to be called Writer Girl. Now we're WG Content. But so we wanted to make sure that the words were active, as opposed to saying, like, we wanted it to be empowered. I am empowered. And we don't want it to be, when we ask someone to nominate someone about demonstrating empowerment, we don't ask the question, how have you felt empowered? It's how have you demonstrated being empowered? Because that actually switches something in your brain when you are asked that kind of question. Like, even on a survey, the data shows that if you ask somebody, like, how did they make you have fun at work? If one of your values is fun, then they get into this attitude of, nobody made it fun for me, instead of taking responsibility for making it fun themselves. So we very intentionally did that together. And we wanted it to be something that was pithy. And so we messed around with the order of the words, and we made sure that they were short. And then we have each thing, which is funny because these are the things that I have to think of. It's like, we're empowered. We think like owners. We are curious. We ask questions. We are kind. We take care of one another. And fun is we celebrate. So we have little icons underneath each one of those. But the real thing is we are empowered, curious, kind, and fun. It just has a cadence to it. And that has proven to be really helpful to us and has stood the test of time so far for us.
Yes, I love that. And you use personality typing to engage your team. What tools do you find most effective and how do they support better team dynamics and communication?
There are a million different types of personality things out there, but about, 2009 or so, I was introduced to the Enneagram, and I really like the Enneagram. I'm, of course, familiar with many other ones, but the thing that I find about the Enneagram helpful and that has really contributed to our culture is that rather than looking at behavior, it focuses on motivation. So you first begin by learning about yourself. And we always say that when you read about your own type, if there isn't an element of, oh, no, that's not good, then it's probably not your type. Because there's always going to be pieces of it that you're like, oh, gosh, that's so me, and I really don't like that. But what is wonderful about learning the downside of your type, if you will, is that once you are aware of it, and it's about behaviors. So you can see the behaviors, understand your motivation. An example is I'm what they call a 7 on the Enneagram. And my main motivation is everybody has to be okay, including me. So I will sort for the positive. I will reframe things. If somebody comes to me, even my son when he was younger would tell me something, and I would immediately reframe it almost into an at least way. Well, at least this didn't happen. And I think he was the one that one time called me out. And he was like, you are not allowing me to have my experience here. You're dismissing it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's right. I have to really watch that. So I have to be careful not to move too quickly to making something okay when somebody is experiencing something that's clearly not okay. But see, I never would have known that if I hadn't started learning about myself in the Enneagram. And because there are 9 types, there's more nuance to it, but basically, essentially, to start, there are 9 types. And what's really interesting is that you can learn about your coworkers' type and their motivation for their behavior. And when you do that, it lays the groundwork for radical empathy, which is wonderful in a workplace, because instead of me, who is a fast processor, getting irritated with someone who processes more slowly, I just understand that they have something probably really valuable to say. I just have to give them time to process it, gather their thoughts, and be able to speak it. Whereas I just speak it quickly. I'm a verbal processor, so I don't know what I think until I speak it. Other people really have to take it into their body, process it, feel it, and then express it. So understanding that about your coworkers really helps in the workplace to get, more creativity and innovation, because you are not annoyed with someone's behavior. You're kind of like waiting to see what they're going to say, which is wonderful.
Yes, I believe I'm a 3 wing 4, but I don't know what that means. I'd have to go back and refresh it.
Really, the achiever, and the thing that's important to you is you need to win, and you need people to like you, and you need to check things off lists. That's really satisfying to you. One of my salespeople, the first salesperson I hired, she's a 3. She has notebooks, like these notebooks like this, that she's had all of them for years. And every page she writes down her do list and then crosses it off when it's done. And she has kept them for 13 years that she's been employed here, because she's like, but that's my worth. That shows what I did, which I just am like, oh, sweetie, that's just so not your worth. But okay, all righty. If that's what you need and it gives you peace, then that's fine with me.
Oh, it gives you a little dopamine hit when you cross off a list.
Exactly.
Even like laundry or dishes. I'm like, yes. I did it. Even if it's not that
all
important.
On there. Exactly. And crosses them off.
It's, I achieved something today. Yes. So I can relate to that. Definitely. You said something about radical empathy. And I think I would love to know what you mean by that and how people can show radical empathy in the workplace. I think it's so needed nowadays, and something that we often miss, especially in this idea of cancel culture.
Oh, and goodness.
So what does radical empathy mean to you, and how do you model it in the workplace?
Now, a lot of people are just naturally empathetic, but being radically empathetic is really actively striving to better understand and share the feelings of others, as opposed to just being empathetic, which are like, okay, yeah, that's really a hard situation, whatever, but really being like, wow, what does that feel like for that person? And the reason I use that term with the Enneagram is because somebody like you and my salespeople are both 3s on the Enneagram. And so I know if I have to talk to them about something, even though I'm not criticizing them, they might hear it that way. So I need to make sure, because I'm being radically empathetic, I know how this is going to come off to them. So I need to make sure to say, you did not do anything wrong. This is okay. We honestly don't even need to change anything. I'm just asking some questions about XYZ, because they'll automatically go to, I didn't perform well. And so that helps me lead them in a way that is radically empathetic, because I don't want them, if I didn't think about that, I'd be just direct the way I am, be like, hey, what's going on here? Why did we lose this project? And they'd be like, oh my God, she thinks I did something wrong. And that's not true. It's more, let's explore this and do a debrief. And I kind of like your perspective on what you think we could have done differently, as opposed to them thinking that I'm criticizing them for something. And that happens with all the different types. So I can, like, one of my COO is a 2 on the Enneagram. And that person is someone who wants to fix things. And so frequently when we'll be talking about something, I will point out to her gently, because I know her very well. I'll say, this is not a problem. There's no problem here, but it's a puzzle. So let's solve the puzzle. We don't have a problem to fix, but we have a puzzle to solve. It helps get her out of that, I got to fix it, I got to fix it, I got to fix it head game, and allows her to have a bigger picture. As leaders, I frequently say that we need to be on the balcony and not on the dance floor. And it's real easy to get in your own personality type, your own behaviors, whatever that is. And you are on the dance floor when you're doing that. Yeah. And if you're a leader, you really need to step back and you have to be on the balcony looking at the dance floor and seeing all the different movements that are happening.
Yeah, that's so important. And I think with empathy, like you were saying, you have to understand the other person's experience, and then like, how can you contend that within your own experience and like approach it in an empathetic way. And I think this comes down to emotional intelligence, or EQ. And obviously there's 4 parts of emotional intelligence. So how do you integrate emotional intelligence into leadership training, and what shifts have you observed as a result? Imagine a fundraising partner that not only helps you raise more money, but also supports you in retaining your donors. A partner that helps you raise funds both online and on location, so you can grow your impact faster. That's DonorBox, a comprehensive suite of tools, services, and resources that give fundraisers just like you a custom solution to tackle your unique challenges, helping you achieve the growth and sustainability your organization needs, helping you help others. Visit donorbox.org to learn more.
Well, emotional intelligence, emotional quotient, whatever, I think a big part of that is always around yourself, right? That it's about understanding your own emotions and recognizing those and controlling them in an adult manner. And then also being able to do that with your team. I mean, everything that I talk about when it's culture is really all about emotional intelligence, all the different pieces of it, because there's so many. And for me, it all begins with self-awareness. I don't think that can be overestimated in its importance in terms of leadership or work or life in general. It all starts there. I remember years ago when I was in therapy, my therapist was talking about people that are unself-aware, that it's almost like they're driving a car around and sideswiping every other car on the road, and they have no idea of the trail of destruction they're leaving behind them. And that's never somebody I ever wanted to be. And so doing the work of that, it started probably with the Enneagram. I dipped in and out of therapy over time, but it started with the Enneagram and really looking at the different aspects of my personality and my behavior that could be off-putting to my team as a leader, that might be shutting them down or limiting our growth or even limiting someone else's expression of ideas and things like that. That was really important to me to not do that, to make sure that I was allowing space for people to share and do that. So I would say that emotional intelligence includes all of the things that somebody called soft skills that are actually the hard ones, which is empathy, compassion, vulnerability, kindness. What else would go in there? All of those, right? They require both intention and attention. I frequently say it's a lot easier to be a leader as a general because you just give directions. You don't care what anybody else thinks. You literally give them marching orders, tell them to get it done. And if they don't get it done and done right, they go on a pip and you get rid of them and you move on. That is so much easier as a leader than being someone who really employs emotional intelligence in their work, because it takes time and it's a long game. It's not fast.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that definition of emotional intelligence. And I always like to say exceptional leaders are self-aware leaders, and you lead with that understanding. And also, I saw like an Instagram post the other day from Susan David, who wrote a great book about emotional intelligence. And she was like, it's not about managing your emotions. It's about managing your reactions to those emotions, because our emotions run fast. They're there to tell us our experience or if we're in threat or threat mode, right? And so it's okay to have those emotions. We have to become self-aware of the triggers that then lead us to those negative actions that no one wants to have in the first place, but they're natural triggers as things we've experienced in our past or automatic thoughts that come with that. And so it's not necessarily about managing the emotion, like managing anger itself. Anger is not a bad emotion. It's the reaction that comes out of that anger because we're triggered by something. And it's becoming self-aware of what those triggers are. So then we no longer react to that emotion in the same way.
And I think it's the expression of the emotion. You can be angry and say, I am really angry right now. So I'm not going to talk about this because I can feel it triggering me. So I'm going to wait on that and let's move on to something else if you want to. But I think that I like the idea of you saying like the feelings, because I always think about, and I know somebody said, I have no idea who, but that we think we are thinking people who occasionally feel, but we are feeling beings who occasionally think. So really being able to plug into those emotions, and to your point, they're not bad. Like Brene Brown talks about in Atlas of the Heart, it's all about language and saying that if you only have, most people in the world, if you ask them emotions, they have mad, sad, glad. That's it. And what I thought was interesting is when I was reading that, and she was talking about, if those are the only 3 words you have for emotions, then that is literally the only way you will see the world. Like how limiting that would be. And then she talks about how there's such a difference between sadness and anguish. And we all know what that is, right? And rage and being angry are 2 very different things. And so having access to those, the wonderful tool of the feelings wheel, having access to those and really, to your point, allowing yourself to feel the emotions, not only allowing it, like really plugging in and feeling them, but how do you respond to them? How do you express them? And what are you going to do with them now that you have identified them?
Exactly. Yes. The expression of the emotion. That is so good. And you had mentioned trust and vulnerability. Obviously, those are very important in any human relationship, but also in the workplace. And they're closely linked, but can be challenging for many leaders. How do you create an environment where team members feel safe to show vulnerability? And what benefits have you seen?
I talk about this a lot, that I would have, in 2010, I was watching a lot of TED Talks and I came across Brene Brown's TED Talk on vulnerability that literally changed my life. I was watching it like, that dog that goes, what? And the little ears, what is that about? I couldn't believe it. So I watched it probably 10 or 15 times and it made me curious. So I started reading her books. I started learning more about these things. It was all part of the same time I was doing my pretty deep work on personal development and self-awareness. I was really working hard on that. And what I realized is that I think for everybody in the whole wide world, I always say that we all have bruises, but if you can be just a little bit vulnerable, you then avoid kicking people in their bruises. But in order to do that, you have to be willing to show people a little bit of your bruises. And I think that's a hard lesson for humans, especially in this culture, this United States culture, that we are so all about appearances and looking like we're doing something well, that it's scary to be like, this isn't working for me, or this is happening in my life, or I'm scared, or whatever any of those things are. So in terms of leading with vulnerability, I learned as a leader that it's really important for me to let people know that I do not have all the answers. And if I did, everybody else would be unnecessary. And my responsibility is to really come up with really good questions. I need to ask good questions that inspire them to think and use their considerable intelligence and creativity and all of those things to work together to make a better place, better product, better service, whatever we're going to do. So I've seen that by learning to do that myself, it creates a space for other people to be able to do that. And I'm not afraid of vulnerability anymore. I mean, I was for a very long time, but it's been a long time since I've been doing that work. So it's pretty natural to me. And as a result, the team members feel pretty comfortable with that too. And what else that demonstrates too is that willingness to be vulnerable, leading with that, it creates a level of trust. And I always say that trust is a long game, that it doesn't happen overnight. People don't necessarily believe you at first. And then the more we've grown and we have more employees, and a lot of them bring previous coworkers or even friends to come work here, and they are the raging fans about it. So that people hear about it from them. But back when it was me, I was like, you're not going to believe what I say. You're going to believe what I do. And it's going to take some time. And so it did take some time with some of the people who have been here 12, 13, 11 years, that kind of stuff. But now they all know that what I say and I say what I mean. And the other thing that's important about that trust is that it can be blown so very quickly. So it's to be treasured and cared for, because you can blow that trust super fast.
Yeah. And it's hard to repair after that's been done.
Yes.
And I love what you say, because I think sometimes you have to lead with that vulnerability, right? Like, I had a conversation with a friend yesterday. We're both in the thick of raising young children, and look at her as this person who has it all together. And I was sharing some of my struggles, and she goes, "Oh, I have those too. Thank you for sharing." She thought I had it all together, but just by sharing, we were able to deepen our relationship and learn how to support each other in those moments of vulnerability. And it wasn't like a judgment thing or a shame thing. It was like, oh, you too. I don't feel alone in this. We share the same fears, not all the same struggles, just bringing that humanness to our relationship to grow closer together. So it wasn't necessarily finding solutions in those moments, but like now we can text and be like, "Hey, how are you doing?"
Yeah, exactly.
So
one of Brene Brown's older books was called "I Thought It Was Just Me." I think it might have been one of her first ones. It's just such a perfect explanation of what you're talking about. You think that it's just you. And I like to talk about the fact that there's very little that anyone has gone through that someone else hasn't experienced something similar. And even if it's not the exact same thing, if you can express the emotion around it, let's pretend that somebody has a child with a learning disability or something, and you feel vulnerable about that because you worry about them, you worry they're going to get made fun of, and you're concerned about that, and you're protective. Another parent may not have a child with a learning disability, but they feel protective of their child, and they worry about their heart. It's like your heart walking around with legs, right? Isn't that what your child is? It's your heart walking around with legs. And so we can relate to those feelings, even if the exact circumstances are somewhat different, because I believe that the feelings are the thing that make us human and that actually connect us, which is how we are wired, is for connection and relationship and collaboration. That's what we are literally hardwired for.
Yes, I totally believe that. And you mentioned a lot about asking the right questions. And I had Stephanie Cortillier early on in the podcast talk about the art of appreciative inquiry. I've also read the book, and it's all about asking those generative questions and having those hard conversations, but in a way that both of you share that positive outcome and asking those questions so you can get there together and co-create that environment. So what are some examples of the hard questions you have asked? Do you have any like specific examples of conversations that you have asked with, and like the specific questions in those contexts?
It's funny because I was just talking with one of my employees a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about gaps in leadership skills or whatever. And it was so funny because she goes, "Okay, you don't have to answer this. It might make you uncomfortable." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, the preambles was making me nervous, not the question." And then she asked the question. She said, "Okay, do I have any gaps that you see?" And I started laughing. And I'm like, nothing that we haven't talked about a million times, because we talk about it all the time. It's like, she is a 3 on the Enneagram, and we're very similar in our behaviors, but our motivations are different, where she can move really fast and doesn't like details. And that can be a drawback for her. She just has to really slow down and learn how to manage that. I don't have a lot of difficult conversations like that because we already know it is in the matter of course. You know, we talk about these things. We point it out gently when it's happening. So if we're in a meeting and something, and she's very self-aware, and she's like, I know, my bias is to action. I just want to solve the problem. I just want to get it done and check it off the list. Like, okay, you know that about yourself, and now slow down and let's give people an opportunity to figure it out. I'm not a whip-cracking leader like that at all. I'm sometimes probably not as clear as I need to be. We did have an instance, this was several years ago, of a person that I knew was going to need to be let go, that this was not a culture fit anymore. It was becoming less and less of a culture fit, and it was problematic. So in terms of difficult conversations, we don't have that many of them because we tend to do it in the moment. It's not like something builds up and then we have to have this serious conversation. We do try to have accountability with empathy. So if you have to have a conversation, if you notice someone change in behavior, coming late to work, late to meetings, missing deadlines, things like that, to ask the person to say, "Do you have a minute to talk after the meeting?" And then be like, "I've kind of noticed a change in your behavior. This isn't normal for you to be late to meetings and miss deadlines. Can you tell me what's going on?" And then give them an opportunity to express what's going on. And one of the things we like to say to people is that it is absolutely, certainly okay and right that you prioritize your personal life. If you have something going on, if you're going through a family crisis, or I know when I went through a divorce, the wheels came off and people knew it. If someone's ill, whatever it happens to be, it is absolutely appropriate to prioritize that. But what's not okay is to not to tell somebody that you've got these extenuating circumstances because we want to fill the gaps. And we can't fill the gaps if we don't know something's going on. So that's the kind of environment that we have fostered here. And people really do step in. And in fact, somebody asked me once about, and I'm branching off of your question, but someone asked me once about how much downtime, what happens when people take time off and projects just stop. And I was like, I don't think that ever happens. And again, I'm not in the business. I work on the business, so I don't see the day-to-day. But I was talking to my COO about it, and I said, what I notice in our company newsletter is fully half of the newsletter is people giving each other kudos and thanks for somebody filling in while they went on vacation, or filling in when they got sick, or when they had to go do this or do that they all like chip in with each other. And so I was asking my CEO, and I said, am I wrong that if somebody goes on vacation, it doesn't just stop? And she said, that has never happened. Nothing just stops because people come in and collaborate on it. So again, it sounds like a panacea, but it's really true. We don't have a lot of those difficult conversations because we do it in the moment. We just don't let it build up.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And as an agency owner, just going off that a little bit more, it sounds like you work remotely, right?
Yes, we have. We always have too for 20 years.
So how do you build that communication and like team culture when people aren't in the office together?
I almost think it's been easier, or maybe not easier, but it's certainly been more intentional because we don't have a break room or a coffee room or cubes and things like that. We've had to be very intentional about it. We have people in different states. We are in Ohio, and there's a lot of people in Ohio, but there are people in other states as well. We try to get people together. Like we have people that all live in Columbus, Ohio. There's, I think, 3 of them. And so they'll get together and co-work sometimes. We have somebody in the DC area and somebody a little further in Charlottesville, and they'll get together sometimes. People in Cincinnati with similar jobs will get together. But also what they do sometimes is they'll just get on a Teams call and co-work. Like they'll just be working, but they all have their monitors on, and they can be asking each other, especially if they're doing similar work, they can help each other with workarounds or shortcuts, or how do you handle this? Is there something you do that I don't know how to do? So they do things like that. Originally, we started with, we have a lot of committees that people make themselves. Like there's a book club, there's a kindness counts committee, there's a moment makers committee, I think. There's a DEI group. There's a lot of groups like that people choose to be a part of. Now, one thing we are looking at, because we survey our employees all the time, and we just got back a survey and people were saying, I love the meetings, we need the meeting. I know we use them to build our culture, but they're becoming too much. We're like, okay, too much of a good thing. Now we need to figure out a different way.
For leaders looking to create a similar environment of growth and inclusivity, where do you recommend they start? Hey there, podcast family. If you're like me and deeply committed to improving your leadership skills and fostering better connections with your team, I've got something truly amazing to share with you. I'm proud to introduce the EMC Masterclass, something I talk about often as a certified trainer. It's an incredible program developed by the renowned Dr. Lola Gershfeld, an organizational psychologist and corporate emotional connection expert. You might remember her from a podcast episode where she shared invaluable insights into the world of emotional connection. Dr. Gershfeld's EMC Leaders courses are designed for anyone working with people, whether you're a manager, supervisor, team leader, educator, coach, mentor, or a team member. This program is truly for everyone looking to enhance their communication and collaboration skills to raise more revenue for their mission. Now, let me tell you why the EMC Masterclass is a game changer. Dr. Gershfeld's groundbreaking emotional connection process has been integrated into top universities' curriculum and recognized by international organizations like ICF, HRCI, and SHRM. Humans are wired to seek emotional safety, and when we feel safe, we're more likely to take risks, share innovative ideas, and collaborate effectively. The EMC process is the catalyst for creating that emotional safety within your team. The virtual EMC Masterclass consists of 8 modules with 4 hours of expertly recorded material, 13 quizzes to reinforce your learning, and a workbook filled with activities for offline practice and something I still refer to daily. Ready to become an emotional connection master? Dr. Gershfeld is offering an exclusive detail for our podcast listeners. Use the code LEADWITHHEART to enjoy a generous 10% discount on the EMC Masterclass. Head over to emcleaders.com and enroll in the EMC Masterclass today.
Well, I will tell you what a coach told me many years ago. She said, your business is you and you are your business, and it won't grow until you do. And that really stuck with me. That was back in 2008 or 9. And I still talk about that as one of the biggest lessons I ever learned. And what I did after she said that to me is I started a meditation practice. And then I started doing a lot of reading. And it really wasn't business reading. It was more personal development with a focus on self-awareness. That's when I started studying the Enneagram. I found a lot of spiritual books that I really liked and just helped me dig into myself and understand my why. Why do I behave the way I do? Why do I have these particular fears? What are all these things that have gone on in me? Did some counseling, did all those kind of things. I would recommend all of those things for anybody who has access, certainly to counseling. If you don't have access to counseling, read the books, find something that speaks to you and really work on your self-awareness. Because what happened for me when I did that was the first time our business hit $1 million in revenue, was right after I started doing those practices consistently for several months. Those kind of things do correlate to the bottom line, but I always feel like I have to say the caveat that you can be the least self-aware person on the planet, Elon Musk, and have a very successful business. You can. You absolutely can. That just isn't what brings me purpose and joy in my life. Meaning and purpose come to me from the privilege of feeding into the lives of the people I lead. And it has also proven to be profitable. It'd probably be more profitable, but it would not make me happy. So, it's up to everybody to do what they want.
Are there any resources like meditation apps or some of those books that were pivotal in those moments that are there any top books that you would recommend or meditation apps that you use?
Yeah, I do. I do use the Calm app. There's a lot of meditations on there. I use it for sleep every night. I listen to it sleep. It's like being read to sleep. It's my favorite thing in the world. And so I listen to it for that. I listen to that for some meditation. I like guided meditations, even though I would encourage anybody who thinks they can't meditate to understand even Buddhist practitioners can't still their mind. It's not humanly possible. So the important thing Jon Kabat-Zinn says is just to take your seat, to have the intention to meditate and to quiet your mind. And you'll quiet it. And then next thing you know, it's a monkey mind again. And you come back to your breath and you just practice coming back to your breath. That's why it's a practice of meditation. In terms of books, I love Eckhart Tolle. I went to a week-long workshop of his, the Omega Institute, many years ago. And it was funny because I got there. This was probably right about the same time, 2009, around that time. So I went and he basically sat in this room with 300 people and Eckhart Tolle, and he would not speak. He'd just sit there for a while. And I thought, are we being pimped? What's happening here? And then he would come out and say something that was profound. And the first day I went back to my room and I'm like, I don't know, this is stupid. Should I be here for a whole week? I'm just sitting there. And then the next thought that came in my head was, what should you be doing that's more important? Like checking email? No, this is what's important, is sitting in this stillness. And I really embraced it. And I remember a feeling I had then, and I've never had it before and I never had it since, was sitting there quietly in his presence and with these other people and feeling my body effervesce. And it started like at my feet and just it bubbled all the way up. For me, now this is my own personal experience. It was like being in the presence of just great power. And so I always think that he moves me. I think that he's really incredible. He's very silent, very just a genius. So I love his stuff. I also really like Michael Singer. He wrote The Untethered Soul. And I think his books, and he was a real big part of my self-awareness work. And then, of course, Brene Brown, Simon Sinek, all that stuff is great. But the real deeper work is probably Michael Singer, I would say, for me.
Those are great recommendations. Some of the books that I've been reading this year are Dr. Joe Dispenza. He has a really good book. Yeah. I like Louise Hay's. What's the book by Marianne Williamson? Her book about love, which is really good.
I used to listen to her in the 90s when she used to speak. Before Gabby Bernstein took over, that was the next generation of that role. She was a brilliant speaker. If you can find any of her talks from the 90s, they're probably on YouTube somewhere. She was a remarkable speaker on A Course in Miracles. Really amazing. Yeah.
Yes. The Course in Miracles, but I've heard really good things about it. Specifically for me, I like Kundalini meditation, and I use this app called Evolve by Erica. She's inhale, exhale on Instagram, and that's how I found her. I like breath work. Sometimes I like guided meditations, but more so the deep breath work where I challenge myself. And like you said, I think in those moments of silence, yes, my mind is racing because that's just normal. It's wired to do. But when I'm coming back to my breath, like it trains me to that focus, right? Like it trains me to have that focus. And in those moments of needing to focus in the day-to-day life, I'm like, okay, you always have your breath to come back to.
Yes.
And I think that's an important realization for a lot of people because when we're stressed, we hold our breath and we forget to breathe. And just taking those few short, deep breaths, whether it's like the 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out. And also like in that silence is where your creativity comes. I saw someone post the other day, it's like a lot of your ideas come in the shower, but it's not because you need to take more showers. It's because you need to be more silent throughout the day. Yeah. And I think a lot of people feel like they need to push. And silence is like that's not going to get me anywhere. I'm going to sit here for 5 minutes and not do something.
That as a 3, you can do that because 3s like to hustle. I don't even like the word hustle, but 3s like that. I commend you for doing that work. But one of the things that we do, I started this a while back. I encourage everyone, because they start their workday whatever time they do. Some are morning birds, some are not. 50 minutes into working, take a 10-minute break from your devices. Step away from your laptop, from your phones, from everything. Go throw in a load of wash, take the dog for a quick walk, do some stretching, do whatever you want. Just get away from your devices because it helps protect your attention span. But to your point, that's where creativity happens, is in the gaps. It doesn't happen in back-to-back meetings, right? You have to allow yourself the space for that. So I encourage everyone on the team to do that and to protect their attention span, really. We live with these devices in this digital world, and we have to learn how to manage that. And that's a really good way. Do you listen to 10% Happier podcast?
No, but I'll have to check it out. It's a really good one.
It's with Dan Harris and talking about breath. There was one on there. This guy had written a book about breathing, and he started it because he had, it might have been asthma. I'm not sure what it was, and he's an investigative science writer. And he could not figure out how to fix this. And so he thought, well, this is what I do. I'm going to investigate it. And he investigated it and found out of all mammals, we are the worst at breathing. And he talked about that exact thing, that like really practicing your breathing and doing the deep breathing, holding your breath, doing deep exhales, all of that stuff. And it was really interesting. It just made me think of what you were talking about when you're talking about the Kundalini and the breathing. It's a good one. I think I'm sure your listeners would love it too. It's a cast.
Yes, I listen to podcasts more than I listen to music now, so I will have to check it out. Well, this is such a good way to end the conversation. And if you are listening to this, this is your permission to take that pause and go do what you need to do so that you can unlock that creativity and come back in that more human-centered, empathetic way. So if people want to follow you or learn more about the work that you do, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, just Christy Pretzinger. You can also go to wgcontent.com. And you can find all about our organization and me there. I am the author of an upcoming book called Your Cultural Balance Sheet, Keys to Creating an Environment Where People Can Thrive. That will be out in January. And it's really my passion. I really want to share that with people and help people have simple keys, actions they can actually take that's digestible content and actionable content so that if they are serious about creating an environment where their people can thrive, here are some steps you can take to actually start doing that.
Ooh, I'm excited to purchase that book, and I will make sure to link it in the show notes. Well, thank you so much, Christy, for being on this podcast. I have surely learned a lot from you. I know my listeners will. These conversations just bring me so much joy. If you have valued these stories or learned something from what you've heard, please share this podcast episode or follow me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your support, and together we can build a better community and world.